Let's go, Smokes.
Let's go, Smokes.
Long live the People's Revolution!
It's all for one motherfucker for all motherfuckers everywhere, you know what I'm saying?
Welcome
Go
to
follow Red
Leaping Larry's
Falcon.
Revolutionary Reading Theatre.
We're here in the Revolutionary Reading Theater. But first, before that, Meg, we're in the Juche, we're in the Juche Reading Theater. As some like to say. Red Falcon plays games occasionally. Meg, though, being the deer that they are, Meg redeemed some weed smokage for me. So I'm just gonna grab a nugget right quick. 1 second. Alright, I got a little nuggie here. Fuck the demagogues! Exactly. I mean, am I wrong? No. No, I'm not wrong. There you go. Smoke's coming right up. We need to...
You know what a shit barometer is, Bob?
Oh?
Measures the shit pressure in the air. You can feel it. Listen, Bobs, hear that? The sounds of the whispering winds of shit.
Hear that? You feel that? Not scissor busting, yep. My fiance has my grinder. Has our grinder. Sorry, our grinder. I mean our grinder. Oh, it was officially... It kind of was officially ours a while ago. We have been together for 6 years. Probably more like 7. It's not like it's a new fling or something. Just gotta get this on. Can you make grinders on your store? I wish. However, what you can do, one thing you can do is grab yourself a grinder and my store will ever load. I don't know what the hell's up. There we go. You could always grab yourself a grinder and put this Kiss Cut holographic sticker on it right there. Of course, there's also the patches that look pretty cool right here. Oh, I'll have to see if there's smaller stickers maybe I can make, NTC. Have a look later. Juche gang tattoo. That would be badass. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff here. Yeah, there you go, Blatt. Now you're talking. Now you're talking. All right, I got this all packed. All rip roaring to go. Just gotta wait for it to turn green. All right, let us read. Today we're gonna read the next chapter here of on the Juche philosophy, or on the Juche idea, which is in the compilation on the Juche philosophy, which is about, of course, the socio-historical principles of the Juche idea. So we're going to get into the principles, the socio-historical principles of Juche idea. Okay, all get that? I'm gonna fill up my water here in a while too. And in an hour, remind me, I gotta feed the kitty. Everybody remind me that in 1 hour, I have to feed Bug. Okay? Comrades in chat, help me with that. Nice, nice. Looking good, Barry. You set a phone alarm? Okay, perfect, perfect. Then I can actually do the real pin. Oh, that would be badass. Okay, so well, make sure you post that in my Discord whenever you get that, Barry. That's all I got to say. Nice. Nice. You certainly did, as evidenced by that. Good job, Barry. Oh, thank you, Sebs. That's a good reminder. If you are enjoying my stream, consider making the best way, of course, is a direct donation through my PayPal. Right now, I'm in the process of trying to save a family home. would mean a lot. A direct donation, of course, and it's the best way to support me in general if we're being real. But if you prefer to support this stream and bump the stream and
Hey, this guy's a commie! Commie! Treat him
gift subs, like, thank you so much, NTC, just dropping the 5-bomb. Gifting subbies is also very much appreciated, as is biddies, comrades. If you were enjoying it and finding it educational, means a lot. Thank you, NTC. You're that comrade. Thank you. Oh, nice. That, I like how small of a cooldown that has. Because, you know, if we get a hype train, we play the, we do the, Juche Gang song, so that was a good way to, that's a good way to fill the screen with the Juche Gang emote. I would do PayPal. Oh, yeah, no, NTC. No problem, comrade. Like I said, that's why I say, like, of course, PayPal is extremely appreciated, but any way you choose to support me goes a long fucking way. Thank you. Appreciate that, NTC. And if you want more information about the home right now, you can check out my pinned tweet on Twitter. But let's begin our read here. The socio-historical principles of the Juche idea. So last time we discussed the philosophical principle of the Juche idea, which is humanity is the master of everything, and humanity transforms the world. And we explain what those mean, right? It's that humanity is the master of their own destiny and is capable of transforming not only our society, but also the world around us through our purposeful activity. And that because we have this ability, we need to recognize that ability so that we can plan ahead and direct it in a sustainable way, right? So, the Juche idea clarifies the laws of historical development and social revolution. So, as I mentioned before, historical materialism was an attempt to analyze social history from the point of view of dialectical materialism, and mainly from learning what the commonness is between the material laws and society. Because of course those material laws act on society, since society is a part of the material world. The Juche idea, as I mentioned in their last reading, arose and discovers what they are, the peculiar social laws of the revolution and of historical development, and thus also of humanity, which we learned again last time was independence, creativity, and consciousness. Those are the three aspects that make humanity unique from other beings. And of course, these aren't, as I mentioned last time, the general definition, independence, creativity, and consciousness, but particular definitions. Independence being humanity's desire to live independently, free from both natural and social fetters, i.e., oppression, exploitation, so on and so forth. Wherever these things exist, humanity will always struggle against them, right? Wherever there's fetters in nature that restrict their ability to have enough crops or whatever, humanity makes changes of the environment in order to ensure that. As I said before, you can look back at First Nations before colonialism, and in forests where there was too many of one types of trees, there would be a variety of trees planted in order to reduce the risk of forest fires, etc., right? So humanity also changes the natural environment to better suit themselves, and as a result makes it more sustainable in general, right? And of course, we know about the things that we make. It can start from simple spears with carved rocks at the end, until we get up to like much more complex things. nanocomputers and stuff now, right? Nanotechnology. This idea has thrown a fresh light on the fundamental principles of the social movement, the revolutionary movement of the working masses who create and develop history. The socio-historical principles elucidated by Juche idea constitute a new socio-historical outlook, the Juche outlook on history. So the first principle, the first socio-historical principle of the Juche idea is 1. The masses of the people are the subject of social history. Now again, I kind of alluded to why... Oh shit! NTC! Thank you so much, comrade! That's gonna be badass. I one day will grab that trucker hat, I think. Nice, thanks, comrade. So I kind of alluded to this one yesterday when I mentioned about how, of course, we know Marx and Engels, when they were first analyzing the development of capitalism and revolution, they thought that the first places where revolution would break out are the most advanced capitalist countries, because that is where capitalism's contradictions were most heightened, right? But of course, we know, like, history didn't bear that out. And so, what ended up happening, of course, is revolution broke out practically everywhere but the most advanced capitalist countries, right? Yeah, the broderie I find does look really good on that, like, logo. It fucking fits so well. And so the previous question, or the reason why they made this mistake, was because they were really focused on the material conditions themselves and trying to explain how these material conditions causes the revolution to happen, right? And as I mentioned, so their idea was the material forces, the economy, and the inequality gets so large that eventually people revolt against it, and that's how revolution happens. But it didn't really happen that way. Like, people first revolted in where it happened against colonialism, against oppression, and that ended up changing into a socialist revolution in many cases. And so instead of analyzing it from the point of view of, okay, what were the economic conditions that led to this, you also need to analyze it from, of course, those economic conditions do act on society. Again, society is a part of the material world, but it acts on society through the efforts of the people, right? And it's the masses themselves who determine whether revolution is going to occur or not. And that is why the revolution occurred not only in countries that didn't have developed capitalism, but in many countries where the proletariat didn't even constitute a majority of the population compared to the peasantry, right? And so how did that happen? Well, that's because these people had revolutionary ideology. A sufficient number of them to actually make a democratic revolution, and then through their experience of fighting for that democratic revolution, they came to also know that there was a need to continue this further and build up socialism, right? Which is pretty much the course of pretty much every successful revolution, even USSR. Which, you know, like, that's why with USSR there was like this long period where first you have this democratic revolution, and there was a long period of struggle with these interim governments, and it was through that struggle there that eventually people came to know, okay, we need to carry on towards socialism. Yeah, exactly, Sebs. Well, I mean, and I think part of the reason is like what Kim Jong Il points out, right? It's really because of what the basis of Marxism Leninism sets out to do. or what is called, in philosophical terms, what is called the fundamental question of philosophy. And Marx's philosophy, really, the core of his philosophy is essentially pointing out which comes first, which is primary, the material or ideal, right? Idealism or materialism. What comes first, the spirit or the material? And because that forms the fundamental basis of their philosophy, that is what their whole philosophy develops around. And when it comes to them then forming an analysis of social history, which we called historical materialism, or which is called historical materialism, it is also still based on this same thing. So, of course, what they're trying to do is trying to analyze the changes in society and the changes in social situations, and trying to explain that purely from the view of materialism, right? And I mean, they themselves, in the course of doing this, though, Sebs, they themselves realized that there were certain limitations with trying to explain society with dialectical materialism alone, right? Or with materialism alone. And that's why you have certain, like, and this is why historical materialism is like the theory, the application of it, right? And that's why you have like certain rules that are put in place. Like, for example, although humanity's mind is a reflection of the material world, it's not a simple reflection of the material world, right? But again, they never go on to explain further what that is, because their focus was on the commonality between the material laws that act on the social laws. Whereas Juche idea, because it's coming from a place where Marxism-Leninism is very well understood, dialectical materialism is well understood, historical materialism is well understood, they went, okay, we already know the material laws now, right? We get the material laws. Now, let us examine, with the premise of dialectical materialism already in place, with that premise in mind, let us now look again at social history, but let us focus on the masses themselves, right? Let us focus more on the people. And what are the people doing? Right? Let's not focus purely on the economic changes. Let's focus on the masses. And that is the big difference. A lot of people don't, but that is the difference between historical materialism and Juche. Historical materialism really tries to analyze and explain things from the point of view of the economic material changes. And this is why there is like so much this is why there's like so much like confusion with certain reactionaries, because like from our point of view, yeah, the way they're interpreting it is wrong. But from their point of view, it's not. And the reason it's not is, and the reason why they can make this argument is because these limitations exist there. And that's why Juche is like so important, I think. Especially like, it's especially something that like white people, I think, need to understand. Again, we're not going to be able to just take this work as it exists and teach people. This is why I go into big rants every time we read this. But like, if we can come to understand what this is saying, then we can incorporate this and create our own fucking theory, right? And we can stop like tailing Marxist-Leninist classics as the means through which to understand everything in our society, or everything in our current like historical situation and what to do. Lenin wrote what is to be done about what is to be done in Russia at that time. And while it's good to look at that and see the experience that he has, we need to know what is to be done here, you know, or what is to be done wherever. And you can't do that by looking for the answers in the Marxist-Leninist classics, because the truth of the matter is those answers aren't there. Even look at like Stalin, as much as like Stalin's national question, for example, was much better even than Lenin's, right? but I still think from the perspective of like First Nations here, I still think his definition of nations is Eurocentric at the end of the day. And it looks and says that, oh, well, nations arose in the fight against feudalism. And I don't necessarily think that that's 100% accurate. Because I think that if you actually look at what the structure of many First Nations, I'm not speaking for all of them, but I can say the Wabanaki Confederacy for sure, and I know more of them as well would say this is also proudly that before colonialism, hundreds of years before that, there was nations in all but the way that they want to name them, right? And I think a lot of like the naming, using the word tribe to describe it, is a way to discredit the fact that these were nations with political and legal systems in place, you know? That there was a combining of democracy and centralism in the Wabanaki Confederacy, for example, among the nations within it and among the Wabanaki Confederacy itself. So I think that the idea that nations purely arose in the fight against feudalism is somewhat of an incorrect analysis. That yes, that is where European nations arose from, but that is not where the concept of nation arose from, necessarily. And I think also another problem with that particular work, just before I continue to read on here, I know I'm way off on a tangent now, but another problem with that work as well is that they seemingly use the word country and nation synonymously, which is another thing that I think we should try and get away from doing. I think it's actually somewhat like an inaccurate analysis, or it's an inaccurate like definition for us to be using nation and country synonymously. Like, for example, I think you can have a country with many nations within it. You can even have a country with many nations within it that the country itself isn't a nation. Right? For example, Canada and the US is a prison house of nations. It's not itself a nation, but legally in current geopolitical climate, it is a country. Korea, for example, Korea is two countries, but one nation. Exactly, NTC. The US too. So you see, that's why I think we really need to get away from using those words synonymously, because they're not. Especially if we want to have a scientific definition of each one. And that is something that Stalin and Lenin both do in those works. But they're not synonymous when we think about it, are they? You can have a nation that is a country, but like I say, you can have a country that has many nations. And you can have multiple nations in a country. Yeah, and even within the current framework, the U.S. is effectively 50 nations. Yeah, all of them illegitimate. even by Marxist-Leninist standards, whereby they say they all have a common language, etc., because at the end of the day, we know the only reason there is a common language is because those people were like brought there, right? It's not a common language that emerged there. And then culture. What culture? Okay, so Okay, so now that we've went off on that big long tangent, let's read this part. The masses of the people are the subject of social history. Yeah, all of Ireland is a nation. Exactly. Yeah, I like the Korean example. Korea is a good example. 2 countries, 1 nation. The question of the subject of history is a basic question in understanding the development of society, the development of revolution, from the attitude and point of view of Juche. Once this ad hits, I'll grab a drink. Is the leader instructed? The working masses are the subject of history and the motive force of social progress. History develops through the struggle of the masses to transform nature and society. That history develops precisely means that the position and role of the masses as the subject of history are enhanced. So development means that the position and role of the masses are enhanced. And so the reactionaries, as we know, are trying to stop development. So they try to halt the enhancement of the masses. We know they need to keep an exploited section of the masses for themselves in order to have their heaven on earth. You know what? I'm gonna grab a drink right now. Yep, I'm gonna grab a drink right now. Warning, 3-minute ad warning coming up right now. If you want to get away from the ads and have our awesome tiny pictures that we have here, we need to make a command that shows all of our awesome tiny pictures in like one thing. Or that might be too long. Yeah, that might be too long. But we got awesome tiny pictures. And if you were enjoying the stream, you should think about subscribing, because then you get a little bit of one-on-one time sometimes with Larry during the 3-minute ad break. Oh, yeah. You know, you want that. All right, I'm going to run an ad and grab a drink. And then I will tell my followers how much I love them. My subscribers. I got to fill up my drink. Look. This is all the water that's left. You know? You know about that? I'm very proud of you, Blatt. You're one fantastic comrade, and I love seeing what you're growing. Cinnamon, it's always awesome to watch Trailer Park Boys with you, and to get me rant. You help get me ranting. And dang, putting Bop's thing on NTC, you're that comrade. Sam, all the work you put into modding, goddamn. Hell yeah, comrade. Sebs, one of the only people I actually talk to, like personally one-on-one outside of here. Bop is one of the other people. Bop, my spear thrusting fellow Spartan. And K, everybody should be following K. Let's not forget about Meg. Meg's one smart motherfucking comrade, I'll tell ya. I like playing games with you as well. Although Meg's been busy lately, but you know, it's understandable. And how could we forget our buddy, our guy, our pal, Barry Smash? You're those comrades. That's some good water. And it's some delicious, delicious water. Oh, trust me, I support the CPC. It's supported. I'm supported as much as it needs to be from me. Okay, we're right here. The socio-historical movement has its own peculiar laws, which are different from those of natural motion. Of course, the social movement has something in common with the natural movement in that it is also a motion of material. The social movement, too, is governed by the universal laws of the material world. But the social movement has its subject, whereas there is no such thing in the movement in nature. In nature, the motion takes place spontaneously through the interaction of material elements which exist objectively. In contrast, the social movement is caused and developed by the volitional action and role of the subject. The subject of the social movement consists in the masses of the people. Without the masses, there would be no social movement itself, nor would it be conceivable to talk about historical progress. The masses of the people are the masters of revolution and construction, and the decisive factor in transforming nature and developing society. The revolutionary struggle and construction work are undertakings for the very masses and of the masses themselves. The masses of the people undertake the revolution and construction for themselves in order to shape their destiny. It is the masses that want the revolution and construction, and it is also the masses that carry them out. They produce all social wealth by their hands and transform the world and advance history by their struggle. But for the creative activity of the masses, the social change and progress would be inconceivable. Human history shows that the masses' wisdom and ability to understand and transform the world are unlimited, though the scope of the world created and changed by each of the generations is relatively limited. The position of the masses grows stronger, and their power increases through the transformation of nature and society. With the consolidation of their position and growth in their strength, their positive actions on socio-historical progress increases. The subject of history is the working masses, not the reactionary exploiting classes. The working masses carve out and develop history, but the exploiting classes try to arrest and turn back the historical advance. All exploiting classes, after all, constitute a reaction against history. They are the target of revolution. The whole course of the existence of class societies has been a history of sharp struggles between the creators of history and the reactionaries of history, between the masters of revolution and the targets of revolution. That is, between the working masses and the reactionary exploiting classes. Society has advanced, developed through these struggles. Make sense so far, everyone? Although they are the subject of history, the masses of the people do not hold the same position and play the same role in all ages and in all societies. In the class society, unaware of their social status and class relationship, and their strength for a long time in the past, the working masses could not unite into a political force. Therefore, they were deprived of all rights, subjected to exploitation and oppression by a handful of ruling classes, and denied their legitimate position as masters of society. Even in the exploiting society, they created all material and cultural wealth by their own efforts. But they were unable to shape history by their own efforts. They created all material and cultural wealth by their own efforts, but they were unable to shape history in an independent manner. Because they could not occupy the position of masters of society. Only by seizing state power and the means of production in their own hands, and by establishing a socialist system, can the working masses free themselves from exploitation and oppression, and create history consciously, as true masters of society and their own destiny. Part is so important, as I'm sure you were aware. This is the part we're at right here. Only by seizing state power and the means of production in their own hands, and by establishing a socialist system, can the working masses free themselves from exploitation and oppression, and create history consciously as true masters of society and their own destiny. In the socialist society, the working masses undergo a radical change in their status and destiny, and their position and role are enhanced. This is due to the revolutionary leadership and struggle of the working class. The process of development of a socialist society under the leadership of the working class is the process of transforming the whole society on the working class patterns. When the whole society is reshaped completely on the pattern of the advanced working class under its leadership, the position of the masses, subject of history, would be remarkably stronger, and their role in pushing forward the historical progress and revolutionary development incomparably higher. If they hold their position and fulfill their role as subject of history, the masses must be brought into contact with leadership. Only under correct leadership would the masses, though creators of history, be able to occupy the position and perform their role as subjects of social historical development. And like anything else, if we consider that everything is created by the masses, all social wealth, where do you think the leaders of our movement come from? Among our ranks, obviously. At least I hope that's obvious. The link between leadership and masses is a very important question, especially in the revolutionary movement, the communist movement, which is carried out by the working class and the broad masses of other people. Without correct leadership, the communist movement would not advance victoriously because this movement itself is a highly conscious and organized one involving a serious class struggle. And by the way, if you are looking to learn more specifically about leadership, the question of leadership regarding revolution, you can go to my Twitch channel right here, and I recommend taking a listen to this reading right here, Socialism and Man in Cuba by Che Guevara. You can also check this out on my YouTube channel as well if you prefer to watch it on there. So as I mentioned, oh, it's not that? Well, you can get there like this. As I mentioned, if you go to my YouTube channel, I have made a playlist now of the live readings. So I recommend checking out this, Socialism and Man in Cuba, Che Guevara, if you're looking for another perspective on exactly what I'm talking about here regarding leadership. Or rather, I should say exactly what Kim Jong-il is talking about. No problem. Thanks for listening, Sentiment. The question of leadership in this movement is precisely the question of leadership given by the party and the leader to the masses of people. The working class party is the general staff of the revolution, and the leader of the working class is the foremost leader of the revolution. how the masses are awakened to consciousness and organized in a revolutionary way, how they perform their revolutionary duties and historical mission depend on whether or not they are given correct leadership by the party and the leader. And I know there's a tendency, as I've mentioned many times before, there's a tendency in the communist movement, or at least the West anyway, to sort of try and push back against the idea of leadership in many respects. Because some people are like frightened of it in a way that's like, in a way that like reveals that, you know, they really kind of believe the reactionary propaganda that these leaders were dictators and forced, and all the people were forced to love them or something like this, right? Let me read you a little quote from that work I was talking about. In the history of the Cuban Revolution, there now appeared a character, well defined in its features, which would systematically reappear: the mass. This multifaceted being is not, as is claimed, the sum of elements of the same type, reduced moreover to that same type by the ruling system, which act like a flock of sheep. It's not that. It is true that it follows its leaders, basically Fidel Castro, without hesitation. But the degree to which he won this trust results precisely from having interpreted the full meaning of the people's desires and aspirations, and from the sincere struggle to fulfill the promises he made. How about one more? I'll do you one more. In this, Fidel is a master. His own special way of fusing himself with the people can be appreciated only by seeing him in action. At the great public mass meetings, one can observe something like a dialogue of two tuning forks whose vibrations interact, producing new sounds. Fidel and the mass begin to vibrate together in a dialogue of growing intensity until they reach the climax in an abrupt conclusion crowned by our cry for struggle and victory. The difficult thing to understand for someone not living through the experience of the revolution is this close dialectical unity between the individual and the mass, in which both are interrelated and, at the same time, in which the mass, as an aggregate of individuals, interacts with its leader. Some phenomena of this kind can be seen under capitalism, when politicians appear capable of mobilizing popular opinion. But when these are not genuine social movements, and if they were, it would not be entirely correct to call them capitalists, they live only so long as the individual who inspires them, or until the harshness of capitalist society puts an end to the people's illusions. So back to our work. Only when they receive correct guidance from the party and the leader would the working class and the masses of other people be able to vigorously develop the deep-going and complicated revolutionary struggle to transform nature and society, achieve national and class liberation, build a socialist, communist society successfully, and run it properly. As the leader said, the masses of the people have now emerged as masters of history, masters of revolution and construction, and are transforming the world more and more as they desire. The working people, including the working class, are standing firmly in the central place of the historical development of our time. Hundreds of millions of people who have long suffered class and national oppression and exploitation are vigorously advancing on the road of sovereignty and independence, and social progress, and playing a greater role in shaping the destiny of humanity and the future of the world. Because of this grand forward movement of our time, capitalism and imperialism, which has grown fat on the blood and sweat of the working masses and lorded over it, over their destinies for centuries is precipitating irreversibly into bankruptcy and towards its downfall, deep into the grave of history. The masses of the people, who have become legitimate masters of their own destiny, are transforming the world and creating a new history of humankind in accordance with their aspirations. This is the basic trend of modern history, which no force can ever stop. Here we go. And that right there is your first principle, your first socio-historical principle of the Juche idea. That the masses are the subject of social history, social development. So next time, we are going to look at the next time we read, possibly tomorrow. Look, I did it before 2 o'clock today. So, we could probably do it tomorrow. We are going to be looking at the second historical principle of Juche. Which is, human history is the struggle of the people's struggle for independence. Remember what Karl Marx said, right? Hitherto, all of recorded history is the history of class struggle. Well, although this may sound like a very similar phrase, or very similar wording, you know what? This really does go beyond class society. This simple statement right here explains how class society emerges and explains how development will happen after class society has been overcome. That human history is the history of the people's struggle for independence. And as I mentioned before, in terms of Juche philosophy, independence means that human desire, that human will to be free from all fetters, whether natural or social. That if there's an area or if there's like a way that we're farming where storms continuously ruin our harvest, humanity struggles in order to find ways of overcoming that and have their harvest survive that storm. As an example of humanity struggling to be independent in nature. In regards to humanity trying to be independent of society, all you have to do is look at every single revolution that happened. The feudal revolution against slavery, the bourgeois revolution against feudalism, and the socialist revolution against bourgeois society are all examples of humanity struggling for independence in the social realm in order to improve and develop society to better serve them. And we can just to give you a little preview, we know that like the whole reason why class-based society emerged in some places, why some people got infected with individualism, is exactly through the course of humanity struggling for independence from the natural world, struggling to overcome the fetters of the natural world. And as we know, one thing they did in parts of the world for this was to store lots of stuff and to find ways of storing lots of food and things, right? And eventually this led to, in some people, to the ideas of individualism emerging. This is mine and I distribute it to you, or you have to get it from me somehow, or you work for me because I own this, you know? And and you could say that is like an example of an emergent reactionary trying to stop that development, right? That emerges like as humanity is developing and deciding it needs to do this to overcome the natural fetters. Some reactionary goes, wait, I'm getting very rich and I have a paradise on earth because of this. Therefore, I want to stop the progress. Whether it's conscious, I want to stop humanity's progress or not, it ends up, a lot of times, as we know, ends up them coming up with a reason that justifies why the world is this way, why they have this paradise on earth.